I just came from a tour around Missouri, and I had the opportunity to see the cyber unit at Jefferson Barracks, the Guard cyber unit at Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, and also the cyber warriors at the 139th Airlift Wing at Rosecrans Air Force Base. Both were remarkable. Both surprised me. I was not aware, and I'm not sure, candidly, you're aware of all these units and what their capabilities are and what they're doing. And what Senator Ernst just said, what was remarkable about the Guard unit in St. Louis was who these people were in their day jobs. We're talking about the very top level of cybersecurity at a Fortune 500 company that has huge needs in this area. Huge needs. I mean, this guy knows more, I would bet, than a huge number of the people that you are commanding within the active military in terms of both cyber offense and cyber defense. And I've realized that this is a great opportunity for our Guard to recruit some of the most talented and technically capable people in the private sector, since the vast majority of the networks that we are supporting in terms of protection in this country are in fact private networks. And so I wanted to bring that up with you and ask your opinion about that integration, and particularly as it relates to the linchpin with the Department of Homeland Security. Because the beauty of the Guard is it is busy with domestic security as part of their mission because of the tag and the involvement of state governments, whether it's a natural disaster or other kinds of problems. And so it seems to me that utilizing the Guard as the linchpin between the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defense would make a great deal of sense, Admiral Rogers, and I would like your comment on that.
First of all, I agree with the fundamental premise that the Guard and the Reserve bring a lot of capability. That's one reason why the Cyber Mission Force idea is predicated on the idea. It's our ability to bring it all together, not just all active, not just Guard. It's the ability to bring it together. In terms of who should be the fundamental linchpin, before I get into publicly endorsing a particular strategy or solution, this is just one I'd want to make sure we think our way through, because there are challenges if you do it active only. There's challenges if you do it or Guard or Reserve only. And I'd also be interested, hey, what's DHS's perspective in this? One of the other challenges I found so far in my time in command, we have to work our way through and this is where the Guard, I think, becomes incredibly critical. What's the difference between we're using DoD capability to work federal large critical infrastructure versus what is the capability DoD, by extension the Guard, can bring to the fore at a much more localized state and local level? And that's an area that clearly the Guard is very optimized for, that the active piece is not as readily optimized for.
I'm sure one of our problems in this space is retaining active personnel, because if they become very skilled in this area, there's lots of lucrative opportunities in the private sector. Has there been any thought given to an active recruitment of these folks into the Guard as they move into the private sector for a lot more money and people not being able to tell them where they're going to live 24/7? Is it possible that we are losing an opportunity in terms of retaining some of the talent that we have by not directly recruiting them into the Guard?
So, knock on wood, retention on the active side is exceeding our expectations. That doesn't mean it won't change tomorrow, next week, next month. I will say, since the Guard is an Air Force and an Army-specific construct, I know both of those services in my discussion with my subordinate commanders from them talk about how do we make sure as we're watching workforce transition out of the active, separate, retire, is there a way to tie in the Guard piece? Senator Cruz mentioned San Antonio, for example. I've seen several instances in the San Antonio area, because there's such a large concentration, where this is working very well. I'm not sure how well it's working in those areas where we don't have this large Guard and active force, if it will. So I just don't know off the top of my head.
And this idea has been discussed openly, and I know there is a lot of controversy around it, a lot of pros and cons, but one of these really talented cyber warriors at the Guard unit that I visited with, I was told that one of them almost was removed because of sit-ups. What about the PT requirement, and what value is there to forming an elite cyber squad that is civilian as opposed to, losing a really talented guy because of sit-ups?
So my first comment would be, remember the law of armed conflict specifically prescribes what civilians and uniforms can do in some particular applications. So I generally remind people, a lot of it would have to do with what would the mission be that you gave that entity, because there are some things on the law of armed conflict that physically could not do. Because uniforms have to do it as opposed to
Right.
application of force and capability. To date, are there numbers where that is an issue? Clearly, I'm not going to pretend for 1 minute. But we have been able to retain people and still meet the requirements associated with the broader military without decreasing capability. If that changes over time, though, it's one of the things I have talked about. We need to be mindful that as circumstances change, we need to look about changing the rules that we currently operate. And if the situation were to change, those would be one of the things I would say. So do we need to look at a different force balance or mix? Do we
Right.
need to look at a different set of standards or requirements associated with individuals? I don't think we're at that point now, but if the situation were to change, I think we would definitely need to do that.
I would certainly urge that flexibility because
ma'am.
I think this is going to be a growing part of our national security
Right.
piece. Thank you.